Okay, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Excel and how to work this problem on the homework using Excel. So this is number 11 out of section 2.1. And when you go to it, I've already done the problem, so the answer's already in here. Your problem will be very similar, just with a little bit different numbers. And so what you want to do is right here where it says click to copy table, click this and go down to open in Excel, which is what I've done. And then when I do that, then it looks like this. All right. And then to find the things they ask for, they want you to set the lower class limits, the upper class limits, find the midpoint, find the frequency, a whole bunch of different things. So if you remember, to figure out your class width, in order to figure out your classes, the first thing you need to do is find the range. So you need to subtract the lowest value from the highest value. So the easiest way to do that is to take this data that's in your table and sort it. So just select it all. And then go to data. And then go to sort. And I may stumble around this a little bit because I've been working on a Mac at home and it's a little bit different, but not a lot. Okay, and this says smallest to largest, which is what we want, so we say okay. So then it sorted my data for me, so then I can easily see that 510 is the biggest, 40 is the smallest. So to find the range, I would just subtract those. So I'm going to go down here and do it in Excel. So I'm going to pick a different cell number, and then I'm going to type the function, insert function, and then I'm going to tell it to take, I'm going to cancel this just because I don't want to see this right now. I'm going to take the largest number. Okay, let's go back here, function. I may not be able to get that off of there. So take the largest one. Again, a little bit different on the PC. About what I was doing wrong, you don't press the function button on a Mac. That's the way I did it. Here you just have to physically put in the equal sign, and then it knows you're going to put an equation in there. And so then I take the largest and I subtract the smallest. So I need to go back up here to the top where the smallest is and then hit enter. And that gives me the range. And then to find the class width, if you remember, you want to divide by the number of classes. In this problem, I believe it told us there were 6 classes. So what I want to do is I'm just going to, this cell's fine, I'm just going to say equals this number. I put a minus instead of an equals. So equals this number divided by 6. Enter, and I get a decimal number of 78.33. If you remember from the directions in class, I always want to round up, so I'm going to change that number to 79, and that is my class width. So what I want to do is I want to go back up here, and I usually like to insert a row just so I can label things, so I can remember what things are. So I'm going to go to the home screen and then insert sheet row, and that gives me the ability to label this. So I'm just going to label this small. So this is the bottom of the class width. So I'm going to put 40. And then if you remember, you always want to start at the bottom one. If you remember, to get the rest of them, I'm just going to add that number 79 to each of these. So this would be 40 plus 79, and then that number plus 79, that number plus 79. So you can do that by hand. It goes really quickly. Or you can get Excel to do it for you by taking the function again and putting equals. And then what you want it to do is you want it to take this number, the number above, but you always want it to stay in the same column. So to tell it to stay in column C, I'm going to put a $ in front of that. That tells it to stay in column C, but it's going to go down each time when I do a fill down. Okay, so I'm going to take that number And to that, I'm going to add 79. And again, I could just type the number 79, or I could pick this cell. But again, when I do a fill down, I don't want it to change. I don't want it to go over or down or anything. I want it to maintain that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a $sign in front of the column, and I'm going to put a $sign in front of the row, and that tells it to stay right here at 79 and not to move. Okay, then I'm going to hit enter. And if you look, that is 40 plus 79. And then all I have to do is grab this and fill down. And again, I want 6 classes. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to do a Control D, and that fills down. And so I've added 79 to each of these. Okay, then the top of your class list, or the large one, is always 1 less than this. Okay, so this would be 118. And then this would be 197, or again, I could just add 79 to each of these. So I could go up here and hit equals. I could tell it to grab this, but stay on that column. So I'm going to put a $sign, and then I want to add 79. So again, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to tell it to stay on that cell. So stay on that row, enter. Okay, and now I've added, you can see it's 197. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to do a fill down. And if you grab it at just the right corner, you can get it to do automatically, but I always seem to miss that, so I just do the Control D. All right, so there's the 276. Then the next thing it wants us to find is it wants to find the frequency. So the frequency is how many of these happened in this range. So between 40 and 117, I have 1, 2, 3. So my frequency there is 3. And then between 119 and 197, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4. And then you keep doing that, and I got 5, 7, 4. That looks like I didn't write the last one down. From 435 to 513. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. And to check that, I'm going to sum that column. So this time I am going to push the function button, and then I want it to sum. So I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to tell it to add these numbers. OK, and I get 29. And if you look at my data, it goes down to 30, but I use the first row for a labeling row, so I do have 29, so I know this is correct. Then the next thing it wants us to find is the midpoint. So, and I probably should have labeled this lower and upper, but again, it doesn't matter, just so you know what's what. Then here I want the midpoint, so I'm just going to put MD for midpoint. And to find the midpoint, you want to add these and divide by 2. So I'm going to put an equal, and I'm going to put this in parentheses because I want to add it before it divides by 2. Order of operations, you've got to tell the computer to do things in the right order. So I'm going to add this, close parentheses, so it will add it before it divides by 2. And then there's the midpoint. That's exactly in the middle between these 2 points. And again, I want it to do that to all of these, so all I'm going to do is just do a fill down. And I've got the middle of all of those. Then the next thing it wants you to find is the relative frequency. So RF, the relative frequency, I can take this and divide by the total. If you remember, relative frequency is the frequency in that class divided by the total sample size. So to find this, I'm just going to push equal and take 3 divided by 29, but again, I want it to stay 29 when I do a fill down. I don't want it to move. So to keep from getting an error, I'm going to put the dollar signs in here. So a dollar sign before the column and a dollar sign before the row. And there's the relative frequency. And then again, I'm just going to fill down. And if I've done this correctly, these should sum to 1. So again, I'm going to sum them just to check my work. I'm going to grab what I want summed. Okay. And it does sum to 1, so I know that I did it correctly. Then the last thing it asks us to find is cumulative frequency. So the cumulative frequency, the first one would be 3. And then the next one would be 7. I add 4 to that. The next one I add 5. I get 11, etc. So again, that would be very quickly and easily to do by hand, but you can get the computer to do it for you by going down here and telling it to grab this one. Then I want it to stay in the same column, so I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the column. And then I want to add the next one down. But again, I want it to stay in the column. I want it to change rows, but I want it to stay in the column. So I'm just going to put a dollar sign in front of the column. Okay, and then there's my 7, and then again I do a fill down. And I end with 29, which should be correct because that's my cumulative, that's my total sample size. So hopefully this will help you work through Excel, and then that makes it very easy to go back to the homework and fill in all the blanks.